Picture this: Alex leaps out of bed like a motivational poster come to life for about 30 glorious seconds. I watched him stand there, fists pumped, reciting grand plans like an over-caffeinated Shakespeare audition, and I almost believed him too. Then he blinked, checked his phone, and his heroic posture politely bowed to an Instagram scroll. My heart wept for him and for our collective impulse control. You know, motivation's like a cheap fireworks display. Loud, bright, and over before you remember to clap. I watched Alex scribble a 5-point plan on a sticky note and tuck it under his pillow like a secret pact, which was adorable until lunch when that sticky note became a napkin for his sandwich. I told him gently that motivation is reactive and fleeting, but he nodded as if I'd just described a rare species he'd never seen. I leaned over Alex's shoulder and asked him, in my calm narrator voice, "Is feeling motivated the same as being consistent?" He blinked, like the question had bitten him, and then admitted that his excited energy rarely translated to routine. That's the meat of our little tale. Feelings are not contracts, they're invitations. Cute little party invites you can ignore when Netflix shows up with pizza. Willpower gets trotted out like a superhero cape at parties, but it can't carry groceries, let alone life changes. Alex swore he had enough willpower to outrun a cheetah, but within a week he used more of it resisting the office donut than on his habit, which, predictably, lost the race. I told him we shouldn't bet our futures on heroic one-off efforts. Systems are quieter and far less drama-prone. So I introduced Alex to a new idea, like a proud parent at a school play: systems. I said, think small rules that make good choices inevitable, and watched his face quickly go from skepticism to curiosity, which, for Alex, is basically step one toward incremental improvement. He nodded, as if I'd handed him an actual magic wand, and we both knew it wasn't magic. It was steady design. Alex is committed to the oldest human tradition, promising himself tomorrow will be different. He declared next Monday his launch date with the solemnity of a coronation, but I could tell by the way he picked the date, a vague, distant point chosen purely for emotional comfort. I gently reminded him that tomorrow is a very popular word for procrastinators, and he laughed like someone being funnily accused of a crime he definitely committed. Then there's Alex's signature move: go big, go all in, then meet the Burnout Express. He tried a 90-day transformation plan that included running 7 miles, meditating for an hour, and cooking like a Michelin chef, all before breakfast. 3 days later, he was swapping his running shoes for slippers and asking why rest didn't count as cardio. I told him gently that consistency beats theatrical commitment. Alex throws micro-celebrations for intentions like they were finished marathons. He bought a tiny trophy for day 1 completed and put it on the shelf. I admired the optimism, but advised him trophies are better earned slowly than purchased for mere intention. He patted the trophy like a pet, which was charming, and then immediately forgot the second step to his plan, which was slightly less charming. Our culture sells instant results like they're on sale, and Alex, bless him, is a regular shopper. He'd read a headline promising 15-day fixes and immediately reorganize his life to chase the headline's fantasy. I explained that systems reward tiny, repeatable actions, not flashy one-offs, and he looked at me like I'd described the plot twist of a mystery novel, stunned, then curious. Finally, after a few cycles of enthusiasm and collapse, Alex sighed and admitted he was tired of being reliably inconsistent. I put my narrator hand on his metaphorical shoulder and said, "Maybe it's not you being weak, it's the plan." He brightened because if there's one thing Alex loves, it's an external design he can tweak. The man will reorganize a closet at 2 a.m., if you ask nicely. I told Alex to stop obsessing over the destination and start designing the route, systems over goals. He blinked, like someone whose high school GPS died, then asked for examples, which I happily provided, like the difference between publish 1 article a week, goal, and write for 30 minutes every morning, system. His face lit up because routines are basically permission slips to be boring and effective. Next, I coaxed Alex into thinking about identity. Who do you want to be? Not what do you want to do? He tried on statements like, I am a runner, and I am a writer, like hats, and declared one that fit. I cautioned him that identity is built by tiny votes, so the system needs to be one that collects votes in your favor every day, like a polite ballot box for your future self. I taught Alex about cues. Make the habit obvious, so it shows up like an invited guest who never forgets the address. He put his running shoes by the door and his journal on the pillow, which made me silently cheer like a sports fan spotting an underdog move. He admitted it felt silly at first, but then noticed he was actually doing the action more often because he couldn't miss the cue, victory by visibility. Then we simplified. Reduce friction until the habit practically does itself, like setting out a bowl of popcorn for movie night, but healthier and less buttery. Alex prepped a 5-minute workout routine instead of a marathon plan and put a basic grocery list on the fridge to avoid culinary chaos. He grinned when he realized small steps require less drama and have better attendance records. Finally, we made the habit satisfying because our brains are lazy reward machines that like little treats. Alex used a tiny sticker chart, yes, for grown adults, and celebrated incremental wins with a 5-minute victory dance that looked like interpretive flailing but felt great. He loved that the reward loop was simple and immediate. I loved that he was doing the dance in public because it's good for morale. This is the part where I convinced Alex that every small action is a vote for the person he wants to become, which made him suspiciously enthusiastic about mundane chores. He started telling himself, "I'm the sort of person who writes in the morning," and then dutifully wrote 3 sentences. I told him to collect votes daily because habits compound. Small actions are like compound interest, but way less boring on the surface. We talked about identity signals, small, visible cues that tell others and your future self who you are. Alex started packing his gym bag the night before and wearing running shoes around the house like a subtle billboard for his new identity. He joked that he was now running chic, and I pretended to take fashion notes, but inside I was cheering because the signal meant the system was working. Funny thing, belief often follows action, not the other way around, which made Alex feel like a reverse psychologist for himself. He acted like the person he wanted to be, and slowly started believing he was that person, like a practical cosplay that becomes your default setting. I reminded him that small, consistent actions have more credibility than dramatic speeches, and he nodded because speeches tire him out. We set identity anchors, tiny rituals that reinforce who Alex wanted to be, like a morning note to himself, "I am consistent." He added a short mantra to his alarm, and every morning muttered it like a ritual that was slightly silly and very effective. Watching him do this felt like watching someone sign a small, meaningful contract with their future. And who doesn't love a contract without paperwork? I told Alex to aim for consistency, not perfection. A message he embraced because perfection always seemed exhausting and slightly smug. He started showing up imperfectly, but regularly, and those imperfect show-ups grew into a pattern that didn't beg for apologies. He celebrated small wins, forgave small slips, and somehow life got less dramatic and more productive. Not flashy, but effective. I introduced Alex to the 2-minute rule. If a habit takes under 2 minutes, do it now. He laughed at first, thinking it was a joke, but then realized reading for 2 minutes often became 20. He loved the concept because it respected his attention span and made starting feel silly easy, which is honestly a very underrated strategy for human beings made a distraction. Then we stacked habits on habits like a very practical game of Jenga where nothing collapses. Alex paired his teeth brushing with 5 minutes of journaling, so the new habit piggybacked on an existing automatic action. He called his system Brush and Pen, which made me giggle, but hey, if clever names increase adherence, I'm all for marketing genius in the service of good routines. We experimented with tracking habits in a way that didn't feel like data torture, because Alex is allergic to spreadsheets. He used a simple visual tracker, sticky dots on a calendar, and the satisfaction of seeing a chain grow was oddly motivating. He loved crossing days off and told me dramatically that it felt like feeding a pet streak, which, I agreed, is an excellent metaphor for behavior change. Small wins are like tiny deposits in a confidence account, and Alex's balance grew quickly once he started making regular deposits. Every time he completed a small habit, he felt a little less like an accidental person and a little more intentional. I reminded him that momentum compounds. The more small wins, the more likely he is to tackle the bigger, scarier stuff later on with less trembling. We balanced immediate satisfaction with long-term goals, so Alex didn't feel perpetually bored on the road to progress. He rewarded every 7 streaks with a small treat, like a special coffee, which kept motivation pleasant and the system sustainable. He learned that delayed gratification works best when it's punctuated by tiny celebrations along the way. Life is long, but it shouldn't be joyless. Of course, the old habits staged a counterattack because they're clingy and nostalgic like sitcom characters who never leave. Alex slipped back into old routines and felt like a failure, which he announced dramatically to anyone within earshot, which was usually me. I reminded him that relapse is not defeat, it's feedback, and feedback is useful if you don't weaponize it against yourself. We played detective and pinpointed the friction, late-night snacks, missing running shoes, and a certain couch that emits gravitational pull. Alex made a list of obstacles and ranked them like a villain roster, which made him laugh and made me take notes for future chapters of our psychological thriller. Once we removed or softened the friction points, progress felt less like pushing a boulder uphill and more like nudging a shopping cart. We tweaked the system instead of trashing it, small adjustments, not dramatic reversals. Alex shortened his morning routine and moved his workout earlier so the afternoon donut couldn't seduce him as easily. He was relieved to discover adjustments were allowed. He'd always assumed systems were holy and unchangeable, which is what happens when someone reads too many infomercials. We added gentle accountability. Check-ins that felt like a hug from a friend, not a courtroom summons. Alex texted a buddy with his daily mini goal and they traded tiny updates. The result was supportive and low pressure. He liked being accountable in a human way because shame is a terrible motivator and snacks are better shared with cheer, not judgment. Every so often motivation pops back in like an overeager guest, and we shouldn't over-celebrate it as proof everything's fixed. Alex would get bursts of energy and try to overhaul his whole life in a day, then come to me with a new ultimate plan, a ritual I've come to expect and affectionately roll my eyes at. I told him to channel that energy into reinforcing the system instead of replacing it. That way progress scales rather than spikes. We designed a micro-routine Alex could actually love: 2-minute journaling, a 5-minute stretch, and a tiny breakfast ritual that didn't require assembly line skills. He liked it because it felt deliberate without being bossy, and he got to keep his dignity intact while becoming more intentional. I watched him do the routine for a week and noticed his mornings lost their frantic edge, a small change with disproportionately calming returns. For work, we used focus blocks instead of relying on mystical willpower to stay productive. Alex started 45-minute work sprints with a 5-minute break and found he could concentrate without heroic discipline. He liked a rhythm, like a tiny drumbeat for the day, and was thrilled to finish tasks without dramatic motivational pep talks. Evenings got a reset ritual: tidy for 5 minutes, prep something small for the next morning, and a short gratitude note. Alex called it his no-drama wind-down and used it like a reset button that made mornings easier and phone scrolling less magnetic. He found sleep quality improved because his brain knew tomorrow had a plan, and that's a surprisingly large psychological win. We added a weekly review where Alex scanned what worked, what didn't, and made tiny adjustments like a responsible life gardener pruning a plant. He set aside 15 minutes on Sundays, a ritual he described as adulting with coffee. The review kept systems honest and flexible, and he liked that it replaced vague guilt with practical action. After months of small systems, Alex looked less like someone constantly launching and more like someone quietly building a life he liked. He still had days of low energy, but the systems carried him forward instead of letting him slide back into chaos. Watching that slow change felt deeply satisfying, like watching a tiny plant grow taller every week, and I couldn't help but tease him a little about how reliably unromantic habits can be.